Welcome to Dynamics Con. My name is Tanya Henderson, and I am going to present reporting. And so what I'm going to talk about today is reporting in Business Central and Dynamics 365 BC. I'm going to go over the RDLCs, the Word, Excel, Power BI, and kind of what an API, which is not a reporting tool, but it's kind of be how we can get reports out. So the question is, which one do I use? And again, my name is Tanya Henderson. I have been a Great Plains consultant for over 20 years, and I have been a Business Central consultant for about 4 years now. I basically volunteer for some committees, do speakings at different conferences. So that's just a little bit about me. So let's get into our presentation. So for Business Central, it's kind of like, what does it look like from inside of Business Central? So what you're looking at now is the different options that are available in Business Central. You will have kind of Word or Word templates that will be available. You will also have the standard reports that are available in Business Central. And then you will also have the RDLCs. I'm missing a C on there. But those are available in Business Central. And so if you look in the left-hand corner on my slide up there, what you're going to see is that is an invoice format that will come out when you print an invoice, sometimes when you print a purchase order. So all of those documents that you send to your customers, those are mainly used for emailing functionality. The standard reports, which is our center section there, are kind of for our agings, any kind of report that you would see in Business Central relating to anything, just basic standard reports. And then you'll have the RDLC reports that are available as well. Those are like your check format is one. And when you're inside of Business Central, you can go to a section that, and if you search, and you'll go to something that's called your custom report layout. And when you get into that section, you'll see all of the reports that are available in Business Central. You will also see right there off to the right side of the screen, you'll see what type of report is being used or is utilized in the system. A lot of them start out being obviously RDLC reports, which are kind of like what you would use to edit if you had Visual Studio or Report Builder. So those are some of your just standard reports. And so you kind of ask, why do I have all these report options in Business Central? And the reason that you have those different report options is our reports are just used for different things, such as, like I was saying, Word's kind of used for emailing, for invoicing. The RDLC, you can do a check format. You could do it with a Word too, but I think it's a little bit easier doing it with the RDLC. And then, of course, your standard reports you use every day. So what does it look like from an editing tool? This is where it gets fun. So now if I open that Word template or that Word report, you'll notice the left-hand side, my slide shows that invoice that we just looked at on the previous screen. And if you look at the right side of the screen, what you're going to see is this is what it looks like when I'm in Word. Also, if you're in Word and you're trying to do some editing to this particular report, you do have to add the developer tab in Word. So you have to go up to the top and you have to, come down to the options and change the ribbon up there at the top to get to the developer section. When you do that, you'll also see an XML pane button that will be available. And if you click that, then you'll get to see the fields and kind of what the report is made of in the back end. And so that when you're in that view, then you're able to make some changes to some of these reports. And so, I can move fields around, I can add fields. So that's when you can change a lot of, kind of really, really change the report. So this is what it looks like in Word. So not too scary. Then you're going to get into Report Writer, or Visual Studio. So these would be your standard reports. So if you remember, I was saying a standard report's kind of an aging. So in that aging, you'll see here to the right, that looks a little not so pretty, but at least you can see what some of the field names are in this particular report. So trying to edit these reports, customers always come in and say, hey, can I edit this report? And you're like, yeah, I can edit it, but it's not the most fun thing in the world to do. But it can be done. You can also add some fields to these reports. There's some standard fields that'll be available. Sometimes when you have a field that is pretty specific and it's not available, you can do an extension to add that particular field in. So you can definitely customize these. You would be using something such as Visual Studio and or Report Builder. So then now the next option we have is our RDLC report, which you would see inside of Business Central. And even the standard reports will say they're RDLC as well. So this is a check. So this, again, is something we edit all the time. You'll notice off to the right, I do have it open in Report Builder. So here I'm able to move fields around, but you will notice that the fields kind of don't have the best naming conventions. So you really have to be careful when you're editing these to know which fields you're actually removing. So a little more, scary to kind of get in and edit. If it's a check, not so bad, because you can kind of really compare the check to what you're seeing in Report Builder. But, obviously you can always delete the wrong field, which we've all done. But the nice thing about it is when you're editing these reports inside of Business Central, you can actually export out the layout, save it, and then just import it back in. If you think you're getting ready to make a really big change that you're a little nervous about, you can actually just do a file save as, and then, now I've got a new version of this report. I can import it back in, print the report right from my editing tool to see what changes I've made. And then if that's not, I've really messed something up, then you can just go back to your other version and import that version. So one of the things I really love about Business Central is the ease of editing the reports in the system, or I should say testing the reports and importing and exporting. Being a GP person, when Word templates came out, I still have a problem importing those things back in. You don't have the same issue inside of Business Central. It is a lot easier to edit, to bring those back in. I won't say edit, but I'll say bring them back in, once you've made changes to them. And then of course, saving those out there. So which one's better, Word or RDLC? So my opinion would be, obviously inside of Word, as you guys saw, the field names are a lot easier to see and to understand if I'm in a Word template. The modifications can definitely be a little bit easier. And I'm using Word formatting, which is kind of cool, because I've had a customer in the past who wanted to change their entire purchase order to be landscape, which was I wasn't sure if I could do that, because I know in GP it's not the most fun thing to do. But in Business Central, it really wasn't that bad, because you can use the formatting of Word to add grids and move those grids around and hide the grid lines. So that's just some kind of tips when you start editing those Word documents, just turn the grid lines on, because you can always hide those later as well. So I do like the Word. Like I said, for doing a check, I'm going to choose the RDLC. Most of the time. For some of the other major ones, I'm probably going to use RDLC because I have a lot more power within inside of Report Writer and Visual Studio to do some more robust kind of calculations and things within that tool. So it's not necessarily that one is better versus another. It's just they have different uses. So that is the Word side and the RDLC side. So now we're going to talk about the API. So is an API a reporting tool? Which I had it in the header, but it's not a reporting tool. So your API is your application programming interface. So I've done a previous session on APIs and how you connect APIs. And so what this does is it essentially gives you access to the data. So if you have the HTML link, it's an OData feed, and you put this into Power BI and or Excel, you can actually get to the data in a perfect format. So the API is not necessarily a reporting tool, but it is the link to get to the data for the reporting tools. Okay. So what about Power BI and Excel? How do they fit in? So inside of Business Central, if anybody's logged in, they will see on the home page, you'll see at the very bottom, usually in the right-hand corner in most cases on the home page, but depending on your role. So if you go all the way down there, you will see something that will say activate here for Power BI. And so there are some standard KPI type dashboards from Power BI inside of Business Central out of the box. You can also customize reports. You could bring those into Business Central. You can leave them on the Power BI website and people can access that data. But you obviously have to have a way to get to the data. So that is how kind of Power BI works with Business Central. And then you'll have Excel almost everywhere inside of Business Central. As everybody knows, if you're getting in there, you have open in Excel or edit in Excel. So it is very tightly integrated with Business Central. And so you'll have that ability to just, pop it into Excel. I do it all the time with customers from the list views. I also do it from configuration packages if I'm trying to see some data. But it's very, very tightly integrated with both of those tools. So what does it look like again? So here we have the Power BI on the left. And so what I've done with the Power BI is I have taken a income statement and I've edited that or accessed the data, joined a bunch of fields and tables and all that together with inside of Power BI to create an income statement. And so here you can see that I've done where you can see the chart of accounts. I can see what the balance is in those accounts, and I can drill down to the dimensions, which is really kind of cool because sometimes you can't get to that as easily inside of Business Central. Now, if you look in the center section, this is where your API is. So the API, here's just an example of a link that's in Business Central. And so to find out where all of these are, you just go to your magnifying glass at the top, and then you would type in web services. This will show you an entire list of web services that are available for Business Central. Inside of Power BI, you will see some areas where you can access that automatically, and you don't necessarily have to come get the OData feed, but you can. And I did that a couple times because it doesn't show me every single one of the web services that's available in Business Central in the OData feeds that are out of the box. But to test those links, what you can do is you can go to your user and get what's called the web key from your user, so that when you click on the link, so we click on this link here, it will paste it into a browser. It will bring up a login screen. That is not your Business Central network login. That is your login as your user, which may or may not be different. So my Business Central user is my first name, and then my web key is right below there. And you can copy that web key from your user setup and paste that into the login that pops up. And then you will actually see in HTML in the browser, you'll see all of the data. So you can kind of, just make sure that you're actually accessing the data and that the data is exactly what you're looking for from that. And there are some Power BI web services links there that have kind of joined some things together for you. So you could use those if you wanted to, not necessarily have to join some tables together. So what about Excel? So in Excel, you'll notice in the right-hand corner, I do have my data in Excel. And so what I have done in this situation is I've taken that API HTML link, and I have just pasted that into my Excel. It will ask me for a login, and usually it's organizational. If that's what you'll see, different options that come up like public, private, organizational. I usually choose your organizational, and then that is your login for Business Central. And so then, of course, then you'll see the data in Excel. And then what I do with it is I'll, of course, use Power Query to be able to manipulate that data. So what does it look like from the editing tools for the Power BI and the Excel side? So what you're looking at here at the very top is the editing for Power BI. So across the top, my very top picture there or image is actually the editing tool for Power BI. I also call it Power Query. I don't know if it has a different name or not, but it looks identical to Power Query, which is what you have in Excel that we've all used for years. So what the really cool thing is, those two tools are actually very, very similar or almost identical. Not 100%, but almost identical. So if you know one, you kind of know the other one, which is really cool. So it's very simple to kind of transform data, add columns, just some of those tools to be able to just quickly change your data without being a developer, because I'm not a developer. I always say I always play one on TV, but I'm not one. So inside of Power BI, once you then customize your data the way that you need it, you can hit close and apply, and then it will paint your data. A little bit different. It just paints it into like a data table. And then you'll have some options on the left inside of Power BI to be able to switch between the table links, the table data, and then what you're actually doing inside of Power BI. Like if you were building a dashboard or a table matrix or something like that, that'll be your uppermost icon inside of Power BI to kind of see your results. I call it the results query. So your results query will have the second image that's in my slide screen here. And it's kind of like your pivot tables, same type of thing. There's some dynamic filtering that is going on in Power BI now. So it's really kind of cool. You can add splicers, you can do all of those types of things inside of Power Query, change charts without really messing up what your result is. So very, very powerful tool, mainly used a lot of times for dashboard. In my previous example, I was doing a table matrix because somebody was needing financials. So, that I would normally try to do like in an Excel world, but we needed it for Power BI for licensing and access. And then inside of Excel, so if we look down at our Excel example down there, you will see again that it almost looks identical to the top one because it's Power Query in Excel. So I will have the same type of look and feel, transforming data, adding columns, merging tables together, just all kinds of really cool tools to be able to transform that data. So again, once I transform the data here and I load that to an Excel spreadsheet, now I don't have the same thing I had in Power BI to show my links or my results. What I will see is just a sheet inside of Excel with all of my data. For me, I will usually rename that sheet like my data sheet, and then I will insert my pivot table into a different sheet. And then that way I have my data table, which continuously gets refreshed, which is really kind of cool. And then I'll have my results tab basically on a different sheet. So that's when I would have my dashboards or whatever it is I'm trying to have as my results for my data. So similar approaches in both of them, but a little bit different for what people are wanting. And so which one is better? So the difference for Power BI and Excel, again, in kind of my thought process is, and for what I do with customers, in Power BI, the licensing is actually really inexpensive, like free. So in Power BI, you have to have someone who can publish. So someone can publish it, and then it can be available for other people in the company. So that's a pretty nice tool to be able to use that obviously is not a lot of money. And so, people can't necessarily change that data and push anything back into Business Central. They're all just viewing that data. And it's also a web-based delivery because you're just logging into the Power BI website, and then you're accessing the data, which is very simple, very cool. It is a little more complex, if you saw from the previous slide. So it does make it a little more, scary to be able to get in there and, and play around with it. But the really nice thing is you can play around with it for free. You just have to sign up. And if you get to the point where you're ready to publish it, then you can get a license to publish it. There are some tools that if you're trying to do some download or get some extensions for Power BI that do require a pro license. But I think that's $10 a month. So it's not anything that's, super expensive. So Power BI, though different than Excel, I always think it's more dashboard based. So I'm trying to do graph charts, pie charts, line charts, things like that, or some really cool, heat maps, world maps and things like that. That's kind of what that's what you're looking for. I think Power BI is a better delivery tool for that. On the Excel side, if I'm trying to analyze data, that's where I feel like, Excel is definitely better. Because I can do pivot tables and, I can see the data, right there. Maybe I'm trying to do some totaling or VLOOKUPs, things like that. I feel like it's much easier to do that in Excel. So that's when I would lean toward doing an Excel document. Or if I have somebody who's really uncomfortable with, just the whole dashboard world, I'll get them into the refreshable Excels. And, they're a lot more comfortable. And then I may build, a pivot table chart in Excel, and which kind of gets them into it. So you can still do those KPI kind of pivot table charts in Excel, but I think Power BI is a better option for that. One of the downsides of Excel is it is local. And of course, you have to have an Excel license to be able to do a lot of the tooling and changes in Power BI. Now, my user does not necessarily have to have an Excel license. They can view it, but they can't refresh the data at all. So they would get it as a static report, like you just send it to them. So they would, have it as a viewer for Excel. And again, like I said, it's definitely more spreadsheet based. So that is all of the reporting tools inside of Business Central, or the reporting tools that everybody sees all of the time. So your Power BI, your Excel, your Word, your Standard, your RDLC. This hopefully gives you a little bit of information as to all the different reporting tools that are available, and why I would use one reporting tool over another. And so I hope you guys got a little bit out of this presentation. I hope everyone learned just a couple of tips about reporting in Business Central. And I hope everyone has some great session at DynamicsCon, and have a great day.